I can't believe free agency is already here, and it is time to predict where the top 2023 free agents are going to go. So what is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? I got 25 free agency predictions for you guys. It's not the strongest free agency class by any means, but there's still a lot of good talent out there, and a lot of these guys could be huge for teams' championship runs next year. So once again, I just want to say thank you all for 100,000 subscribers, and let me know some of your free agency predictions in the comments below. And not a lot of teams have cap space, so here are the list of teams that currently have cap at the moment. So if they are less than $0, they're gonna have to do a sign and trade to get some of these free agents. So we're gonna start off with Dillon Brooks, and it was something weird that happened a couple months ago where the Memphis Grizzlies were like, we're not bringing back Dillon Brooks under any circumstances. Was just a wild statement that was put out there. And Dillon Brooks was a good defender last year on the perimeter. He was one of the better perimeter defensive wings out there. It's just he was not good on the offensive end or shooting the ball. He shot 39% from the field, 32% from three, was kind of a head case on the court, said a lot of stuff, didn't really back it up. And he talked a lot of smack in that Lakers series in which the Grizzlies got upsetted in round one. And my prediction is going to be the Sacramento Kings. They freed up a ton of money on draft night. They can get up to $30 million in cap space. They were one of the best offensive teams last year, one of the worst defensive teams. So I think Dillon Brooks would be a nice addition. Next up, we have Jordan Clarkson, who's most likely going to opt out of his player option with the Utah Jazz. I think he's going to stay in Utah. I think Utah's going to pony up. They're going to pay him some money. I think he kind of likes being the veteran leader in that locker room. He can take as many shots as he basically wants, and he could be, that perimeter leader, that wing leader to younger guys like Ochai Agbaji and Keontae George and Bryce Sensabaugh, the latter two who they just drafted. So my prediction for Jordan Clarkson is the Jazz pay him a decent amount of money and he re-signs with them, but he could still be in trade talks for the next few years. We got Donte DiVincenzo, who is a player option with the Golden State Warriors. He's most likely opting out. That's only at $4.7 million. He can get pretty much double that in free agency. And my prediction is going to be the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks are going to use their mid-level exception on DiVincenzo, keep that Villanova lineage going. They have Jalen Brunson, they have Josh Hart, and I think they are going to pick up Donte DiVincenzo and bring him to New York, as the Warriors are not going to re-sign him. He's definitely going to be on a new team. Jakob Poeltl was traded at the deadline last year back to the Toronto Raptors, to the team that drafted him, and he's a good center, 7'1". He averaged about 13 points last year. He actually did show some improvement on the defensive end, and I do think that the Toronto Raptors are going to re-sign him. I don't think he's going to get an insane contract. I don't think he's going to get a 5-year extension, but I could definitely see Poeltl coming back to Toronto and being that center next to Pascal Siakam in the front court going forward. And I think Jakob Poeltl's going back to the Raptors. Another big free agent here is Cam Johnson of the Brooklyn Nets. He came over from the Kevin Durant trade at the trade deadline. He's one of the best three-point shooters in the league. He shot 40% from downtown last year. He's a career 39% shooter. He is a restricted free agent though, so I do think he's going to go back to the Brooklyn Nets, but I would not be surprised if a team like the Detroit Pistons or the Houston Rockets offered Cameron Johnson $100 million over 4 years or $110 million over 4 years. I think we're going to see Cam Johnson get absolutely paid from a team this summer, but I ultimately think that the Brooklyn Nets, who don't have many of their first-round picks for the next 5 years from the James Harden trade, they're going to match it. I believe that they're going to bring Cam Johnson back. So if I had to bet on a team that Johnson's going to be on next year, it's going to be the Nets. Next up, we have Austin Reaves of the LA Lakers. I think a team is going to throw the bag at Austin Reaves. I think a team could throw 4 years, $100 million. And a team like that could be the San Antonio Spurs, who are looking for a lead ball handler to pair up with their number 1 overall pick in Victor Wembanyama, and Austin Reaves could be that guy. So I think that the San Antonio Spurs will offer a deal to Austin Reaves, but I ultimately think that the Lakers are going to match it due to him being a restricted free agent, and he's going to go back to LA. He was just undrafted a few years ago, but he proved that he could play in the playoffs, and I know they just drafted Jalen Hood-Schifino, but I don't think that's going to change their idea or philosophy with how they're approaching this offseason, and I do think Austin Reaves is going to be a Laker once again. Next up, we have Christian Wood, who's a free agent from the Dallas Mavericks, and I think he's not going to be a Mav next year. The Mavs do need to add some people on the defensive end. Christian Wood is not a very good defender, so I do believe he's going to be leaving Dallas. I think there could be a couple teams that are looking to add some offense, and that could be a team like the Brooklyn Nets or maybe a team like the Washington Wizards, but I think that the Charlotte Hornets are going to take a flyer on Christian Wood. They could look to add some offense up there in the front court, pair him up with Mark Williams there at the 4, especially if they don't think that PJ Washington is a long-term answer. But even if they do, then Christian Christian Wood could be a good backup for them. He did average 16 points and 7 rebounds last year. He's also a good three-point shooter as well. Shot 37% from 3. So I would kind of like a lineup of LaMelo Ball, Nick Smith Jr., Brandon Miller, Christian Wood, and Mark Williams. Like, that'd be fun to watch. Next up, we have Grant Williams, who's going to, I think, leave the Boston Celtics. I think that the Sacramento Kings could also get involved in Grant Williams. Look to add another defender that can guard some small forwards and some power forwards for them. And yeah, I think the Kings cleared up cap space for a reason. They want to add some switchable defenders. They already have some great offensive players like Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis, obviously De'Aaron Fox, and some great shooters like Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter. And I do think that they need to add some premier defenders. And let's get them Dillon Brooks and Grant Williams this offseason. All right, we got Brook Lopez next. And I've been going back and forth where I think Brook Lopez is going to end up, because I think a team like Sacramento could get involved, or maybe a team like San Antonio could get involved as well if they want to move Wemby to the 4, have a veteran defensive presence next to him at the 5. But I do think that the Bucks realize the window they have with Giannis and Drew getting older and Chris Middleton also being a free agent, that they need to win now. So I do believe that they're going to give Brook Lopez the bag over 3 years, and he's going to be a Milwaukee Buck once again. Man, where is Russell Westbrook going? I have no idea. I thought that the Clippers were going to maybe go after Chris Paul, and they really weren't going to bring him back. But Russ was fine for the Clippers. He played well for them in the playoffs when Kawhi and Paul George were out. The only thing is the Clippers have absolutely no cap space. They're in the luxury tax, so the most they can offer Russ is around $3 million. And what team that's rebuilding or maybe even trying to win now is going to offer Russ a deal? Crazy enough, could a team like the Phoenix Suns offer Russell Westbrook a 1-year deal and he could maybe sign with them? I thought maybe Memphis before they picked up Marcus Smart. But a team that I think could take a flyer on Russ next year, especially if they don't make a trade for maybe Damian Lillard, is the Brooklyn Nets. I know the Brooklyn Nets are in those conversations with the Miami Heat. The Nets, like I said before with them re-signing Cam Johnson, they kind of need to win now. They don't have their draft picks. Russ could be a facilitator for this team. They just drafted 2 non-ball handlers in Derek Whitehead and Noah Clowney. Is Spencer Dinwiddie the long-term answer? I could see them giving Russ a 1-year deal to help them win next year. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It's only a 1-year deal. Okay, we got Fred VanVleet to talk about. He already opted out of his player option. Where is he going? There's a plethora of teams that I think are going to get involved in the Fred VanVleet sweepstakes. I'm going to go with the San Antonio Spurs. I think the Spurs realize they got money to spend. They have to get above that $90 million total team salary threshold. And why not get a pass-first veteran point guard with championship experience to run the show for your new star that you just drafted #1 overall in Victor Wembanyama? So yeah, I think that they could go after somebody like Fred VanVleet, bring in a point guard. He can also mentor Trey Jones as well, who was pretty underrated last year. And yeah, like a Fred VanVleet, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Show, and Victor Wembanyama starting 5 could be a lot of fun to watch. And why stop there for San Antonio? I'm going to have Nikola Vucevic also sign with the Spurs. The Spurs are going to have roughly $40 million in cap space, and that should be enough to land Fred VanVleet and Nikola Vucevic. They might have to get creative with a trade or two, but just imagine that lineup I just said with Fred VanVleet, Vassell, and Johnson, the 1, 2, and 3. You can now run some lineups with Shohan and Wembanyama, or move Wemby to the 4, where I think he could be utilized best with his floor spacing ability, and play next to a stronger 5 next to him in the front court in Nikola Vucevic, who could also space the floor, and that could help out Wembanyama a ton on the offensive end. And you'd be surrounding those 2 guys in the front court with some elite defenders, or at least some good young defenders in Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, and VanVleet. And I know Johnson could be a little bit inconsistent at sometimes on the defensive end, but I still think the potential is there. So yeah, I have the Spurs as being big spenders this offseason. Let's talk about Kyle Kuzma, who's probably going to leave the Washington Wizards. Even though the Wizards could pay him a ton of money, I could see him coming back, but I also think that the Wizards want to rebuild with Bilal Coulibaly, Danny Avdija, and Corey Kispert being their 3 most important wings next year. So I think that the Indiana Pacers could swoop in and sign Kyle Kuzma to have some really fun lineups with Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, Kuzma, Jarris Walker, and Miles Turner. Kuzma could space the floor for some of these guys. He could also be a great pick and roll, pick and pop player with Tyrese Halliburton. I think Halliburton would love having somebody like Kyle Kuzma next to him. They don't have to commit a ton of money to him, where it's going to be well short of the max. I don't see him getting more than $30 million a year. And the Indiana Pacers aren't a big market team. They can land a top free agent under the age of 30 who had a great 20 point per game scoring season last year, so why not add that to this Pacers offense? I do think that Jerami Grant is going to re-sign with the Portland Trailblazers, especially if they don't trade Damian Lillard. They could really just realize, all right, we have nowhere else to go. We can offer Jerami Grant a ton of money to go over the cap. We have his bird rights. Let's do so. He's one of the better power forward defenders in this league, or at least in the top half. So let's keep him in Portland, keep Dame happy, and try to stay competitive next year. Even though that's not what they should be doing. They should trade Dame, maybe even try to do a Jerami Grant sign and trade to pick up another asset as well. But yeah, I do think Jerami Grant's going back to Portland. Draymond Green also opted out of his player option. I do believe he's going to re-sign with the Golden State Warriors. I do think that the LA Lakers could get involved. Obviously, the Draymond-LeBron friendship connection, but the Warriors just traded away Jordan Poole. I think Draymond wants to stay a Warrior for life, so I think he's going to get a 3 to 4 year deal to stay in Golden State. Josh Hart is also going to be a free agent. Now, he may opt into his player option and then agree to an extension with the Knicks in August where he can make a little bit more money, and I do believe that's what's going to happen. If he opts into the player option or not, I do believe he's going to sign a 3 to 4 year extension with the New York Knicks. He was very important to their playoff run last year. He's going to keep their star player happy and Jalen Brunson because they're best friends from their Villanova days. So yeah, I think Josh Hart is staying as a New York Knick. Chris Middleton opted out of his $40 million player option, and like I said with Brook Lopez before, the Bucks kind of have to re-sign him like they did with Brook Lopez because their team, after that core four, isn't great. Like, yeah, Bobby Portis is solid. Grayson Allen is all right. Marjon Beauchamp still might take a little bit more time to develop. So why not run the Drew Holiday, Middleton, Giannis, Portis, Lopez lineup one more time next year? Because what else are you going to do unless you can get creative with a sign and trade? Third to last player, we have Bruce Brown, who opted out of his player option with the Denver Nuggets. He can make a ton of money in free agency. I do believe that the Houston Rockets, who have the most amount of cap space, almost $60 million in which they have to spend, are going to go out and sign Bruce Brown. Give him the money he deserves. Maybe it's $15 million a year. He's one of the better role players in the league, and it can be such an important piece for this Rockets team that's desperately trying to be in the play-in tournament or just be relevant again. All right, we got Kyrie Irving. I do think that Kyrie is going to stay in Dallas. Maybe there will be some Lakers chatter. I think that's really it. I think maybe there's a chance he goes to the Lakers. If not, he's staying in Dallas, and it's looking like all signs are pointing to him staying in Dallas. Dallas just killed the draft with Olivier Maxence Prosper, picked up Rashawn Holmes in that trade as well. They got Derek Lively. They can get creative with some mid-level exception signings as well. Maybe they have another trade in place, but I do think Kyrie Irving will be a Mavs next year. And finally, we have James Harden. I've been going back and forth. Do I think he's going to Houston? Do I think he's going to be staying in Philadelphia? Ultimately, I think he's going to be staying in Philly. I think Houston will make a great offer, but I feel like Embiid's going to be like, yeah, James, you got to stay in Philly with me. Maybe we see a Sixers sign and trade with Tobias Harris or something like that. And I think Houston drafting Amen Thompson, getting Cam Whitmore at 20, and realizing the young core they have under Ime Udoka, they shouldn't want to rush that rebuild that they have going. So I'd prefer James Harden staying in Philly, and he is the top free agent on the market. So yeah, those are my official 2023 free agency predictions. There was a ton of free agents that I didn't mention that are right there on the margin. So like I didn't mention a lot of Lakers signings or maybe the Rockets because they have a bunch of cap, so they can go after like the PJ Washingtons, the Kelly Oubres, or the Rui Hashimuras of the world. So yeah, let me know your free agency predictions. Maybe give some that you agreed with me or disagreed with me in the comments below. I'll definitely make sure to react to this video in a few weeks where we know where most of these guys end up. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I love you guys. Drop a like if you did enjoy, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.